You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes. Then an hour disappears. The task is right in front of you, but your mind quietly moves away. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to delay. You check something else, then something else. And somehow, starting feels heavier than it should. This is Money Decode. And today we're not asking why you're lazy. We're asking what you're trying not to feel. You've lived this pattern more times than you can count. A task appears simple from the outside. Reply to a message. Start a project. Make a decision. But inside, something resists. Not loudly, just enough to pause you. Your body feels slightly tense. Your thoughts scatter, and you tell yourself, I'll do it later. Later becomes tonight. Tonight becomes tomorrow, and slowly, something deeper begins to form. You don't just delay the task. You begin to question yourself. Why can't I just start? Why do I keep doing this? What's wrong with me? Now it's no longer about productivity. It's about identity. You start to see yourself as inconsistent, undisciplined, maybe even incapable. And every unfinished task becomes quiet evidence. Not loud, but constant. This is how procrastination evolves. From a behavior into a belief. But what if the delay isn't about effort? What if it's about emotion? Let's shift something small, but important. Your brain is not designed to make you productive. It's designed to keep you safe. And safety, to your brain, doesn't just mean physical survival. It includes emotional safety. Because in the brain, emotional pain, like rejection, embarrassment, or shame, activates similar pathways as physical pain. So when something might make you feel exposed, or judged, or not enough, your brain doesn't analyze it calmly. It reacts. It protects. Avoidance in this context isn't failure. It's protection. But protection from what? Here's the deeper truth. You're not avoiding everything. You're avoiding one specific emotion that your brain has learned to associate with certain actions. And until you see that clearly, the pattern keeps repeating. Let's slow this down. Before you start any task, your brain runs a prediction. What will this feel like? This happens almost instantly. If the predicted feeling is neutral or positive, you move forward. But if the predicted feeling carries discomfort, even slightly, your brain hesitates, not because the task is hard, but because the feeling might be, think of it like a smoke detector. It doesn't measure actual danger. It reacts to signals that might mean danger. Sometimes it's accurate. Sometimes it's just sensitive. Now imagine this. At some point, your brain linked a certain emotion, maybe shame, maybe fear of being judged, maybe the feeling of being seen and evaluated, to certain types of actions. So now, when a task even resembles that situation, the alarm goes off, quietly. And instead of starting, you shift towards something easier, something predictable. This is emotional avoidance. And here's the pattern. A task triggers a feeling. The feeling feels unsafe. So you avoid the task. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding the emotional exposure behind it. And the more you avoid it, the stronger that loop becomes. Until even small actions start carrying invisible weight. So the real question is not, how do I become more disciplined? It's, what am I trying not to feel? Let's approach this carefully, not to force change, but to understand and shift the pattern. First, name the emotion. Pause before the task and ask, what feeling is this bringing up? When you name a feeling, it becomes less overwhelming. It moves from reaction to awareness. You open your work and hesitate. Instead of pushing, you pause. This feels like fear of not being good enough. That clarity alone softens resistance. Second, find the pattern. Ask yourself, when have I felt this before? Your brain builds emotional shortcuts from past experiences. When you recognize the pattern, it stops feeling random. Maybe it shows up when you might be judged. Now it makes sense, and what makes sense can be changed. Third, lower the emotional pressure, not just the workload. Instead of telling yourself to finish everything, tell yourself to simply begin. Open the file. Write one imperfect line. No pressure to be good. No expectation to prove anything. Just contact. Because your brain isn't resisting effort. It's resisting emotional exposure. Fourth, separate action from identity. Remind yourself, this does not define me. When tasks feel tied to who you are, failure feels personal. But when you create space between the two, the pressure drops. This is just one action, not your worth, not your identity. Fifth, stay with the feeling. Start the task. and allow discomfort to exist. Don't try to eliminate it, just don't run from it, because avoidance makes fear stronger, but presence weakens it. At first, the feeling is still there, but as you continue, your brain begins to learn something new. This is safe, and slowly, the intensity fades, so now everything connects. You were never stuck because of laziness. You were stuck because your brain was protecting you from a specific emotional experience. A task triggered a feeling. The feeling felt unsafe, so you avoided the task. But when you become aware of the feeling, when you reduce its intensity, when you act with it instead of avoiding it, the pattern begins to change, not through force, but through understanding. Now it becomes, you notice the feeling, and you move anyway, gently. Maybe you've been mislabeling yourself, calling it laziness when it was something deeper, something quieter, something more human. Because avoiding emotional pain is not weakness, it's instinct. But awareness gives you a choice. You don't have to remove the feeling, you don't have to wait for motivation. You just have to notice what's really there and take one small step anyway. This is Money Decode, and maybe the next time you pause, you won't ask, "Why can't I start?" You'll ask, "What am I feeling right now?" And that question might be the beginning of everything.